Hi, this is Annie with Wildflower and Stitch. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be making this really cute Bitterroot granny square. The Bitterroot is the state flower of Montana, and this granny square is part of my state flower granny square collection. Two things before we get started with the tutorial. First of all, this is an easy intermediate level tutorial. So while I will be showing you step by step how to make the granny square, I will not go into a lot of detail for very basic crochet stitches and techniques. So if you are very new to crochet, take a look at my beginner friendly tutorials before moving on to this one. A second thing to mention is that this is my original design. You are more than welcome to use the squares that you make with this tutorial in any of your crochet projects. I just ask that you give me credit for the design, and I will include super simple guidelines on how you can do that in the description of this tutorial. To make this granny square, you are going to need 3 different colors of yarn if you want to make your Bitterroot in 3 colors like I've done here, or the flower in 2 colors and then have the separate background color. I am using this Hobie Rainbow 88 yarn. This is a 100% cotton yarn, and it is a number 3 lightweight yarn. So with this yarn, I am using a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. And with this yarn and the hook, my granny square ends up being about 4 by 4 inches. Then you're also going to need a yarn needle for weaving in your ends and a pair of scissors. We are going to start our granny square from the middle, so we will make the center of the flower first. So go ahead and grab whatever color you want to use for the center. And I will start by making a slip knot. And I put it on my hook, and I chain 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I will bring this together into a ring by slip stitching here into that very first stitch. If you prefer starting your granny square with the magic ring or any other way, feel free to do it your way. And I will chain 2 stitches. And now for the center of the flower, we are going to need 12 double crochet stitches around that ring that we just created. And I am going to count this chain 2 that I chained here as one of my double crochet stitches. So in addition to this chain 2, I am going to need 11 actual half double crochets. So I'm going to go yarn over. I insert my hook in the very middle of this circle. Bring that yarn through. I have 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's my first actual double crochet. So I make another one, yarn over, insert in the middle, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So far I have 3 double crochets because I'm counting this initial chain 2 as one of my double crochets. So I'll just go ahead and work 9 more double crochet stitches around this ring so that I have 12 in total. So feel free to go ahead, work all around your ring, make those 12 double crochets, and when you're ready to join the round, meet me back here. All right, I have worked my 12 double crochets around that ring, including the initial chain 2. And now I'm going to show you where I like to close this round. So here's my initial chain 2. I go into this first stitch here on the outside edge of my circle. And I know that some people like to chain 3 here for double crochet, which is totally fine. I think it's actually technically the correct way of doing that. I like to chain only 2 because otherwise I feel like I get like a weird bump there. So I just chain 2 here and I go into this third stitch, which is the first one here on the outside, to close my round. Like so. And I chain 1 and then I can fasten off this color. So now for me, for the next round, we are going to be working into these stitches here on the outside edge of the ring. And for me, since that's how I started and closed my round, I am going to count the stitch here that I just slip stitch into as one of my stitches, as well as this one, which is the last one here before I close the round. So both of those count as stitches for me. If you start close anything, you do anything differently here, start or close your round differently, totally fine. The only thing that matters that you have 12 stitches here on the outside that you plan to use for our next round. All right, we are going to bring in our next color. So now go ahead and grab the color that you want to use for the petals of the flower. And for this design, we are going to be making 12 3D petals here. So the flower really nicely stands out from the granny square. So go ahead and grab the yarn that you want to use for the petals. And I will attach my yarn with a slip knot. If you prefer a different way of attaching your yarn, feel free to do it your way. Absolutely. So I put it on my hook, and now I will attach my yarn into one of these 12 stitches that I have here on the outside edge. And I'm attaching it here where I have the previous yarn end because I am using my weave in as you go method. I will not go into detail in this tutorial for that technique, but I will link to a separate tutorial in the description if you want to take a look at it. So I attach my yarn there. I like to turn my work around here and pull this yarn in tight. And we will start our round here. When you attach your yarn here, make sure that it's not attached right here in the beginning of the stitch, but maybe more in the middle or more toward the left hand side or the left end of the stitch. Let's see if I'm explaining myself here. So here is the stitch I attach my yarn into, and I make sure that I still have some room here on this side where I attach the yarn here, because once I have worked all around, I will need a little room here to make a couple more stitches. So you just don't want to attach the yarn like right here in the beginning. It might be a little tricky to make those last stitches. So we attach our yarn there, and I will start by chaining 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And next I will make a double treble crochet in the same stitch where I attach my yarn. So for a double treble crochet, I will go yarn over 3 times. And a little pink fuzzy there. All right, so yarn over 3 times, I insert in the same stitch. Right there. I bring that yarn through, and now I have 5 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's a double treble crochet. Next, I will make a picket with just 2 chain stitches. So I chain 2, 1 and 2. And then I slip stitch into the second stitch from the hook. So hook is here, 1 stitch, 2 stitch. I make a slip stitch there. Like so. That's what's going to create these kind of pointy petals, that picket there. And next, I will go ahead and work another double treble crochet. So yarn over 3 times, and now I make this double treble crochet in the next stitch here. So not where I have this previous double treble crochet and that initial chain 4, but I go into the next one. Bring the yarn through, 5 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Double treble crochet. Next, I will chain 4 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now I slip stitch in the same stitch where I have this latest double treble crochet that I made. So I go into the same stitch, bring the yarn through, and bring it through the loop on my hook. And this here is my very first petal. All of these petals are worked exactly the same way. I will show you another one, and then I will let you work around the center, making a total of 12 petals. And you can, of course, always go back and rewind and watch this part as many times as you need to. But I'll show you another one. So I'm right here where I chained 4 and I slip stitched. I start my next petal from right from this spot. So I chain 4. I make a double treble crochet in this very same stitch where I have this latest double treble crochet. I slip stitched here. That's to close that previous petal, and I started this chain of 4 here to start my next petal. So I will make 1 more stitch in the same stitch, and it is a double treble crochet. So yarn over 3 times, insert in the same stitch, pull the yarn through, 5 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Next, I will make my picket. So chain 2, chain 2, and then I'll go into this stitch. So counting from the hook, first stitch, second stitch. I go into the second stitch, and I slip stitch there. And next, I will make a double treble crochet in the next stitch here on the outside. So not where I have this previous one, but in the next one. So yarn over 3 times, go into the next stitch, pull the yarn through, 5 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And slip stitch in the same stitch where I have this previous double treble crochet. And that secures my second petal. So all of these petals are worked exactly the same way. So now I slip stitched here, and I would start my next petal here by chaining 4 stitches like so. And then I would work my first double treble crochet in the same stitch, make my picket, a double treble crochet in the next stitch, chain 4, and secure it in that same stitch where I have the second double treble crochet. I know this can be confusing, especially when each one of these petals is kind of split between two stitches here on the outside. So feel free to rewind, go back and see how we made these petals and make the rest of the petals exactly the same way. Actually, exactly the same way as this latest one here, since we start right from where we slip stitched the previous petal. So watch it as many times as you need to. Work all around, making sure you have 12 petals. And then once you're ready to close this round, meet me back here. All right, I actually wanted to start this recording a little bit earlier to show you how I finalized this last petal here. So currently here, I am in the middle of my last petal. I have made that initial chain 4, I've made my first double treble crochet, and then I've made the picket. And now I am going to make my second double treble crochet in the same stitch where we first started the round. So where we attach the yarn, remember how I said leave a little room on the side, on the right side of that where we attach the yarn. Well, that's because now we are going to make our double treble crochet into that same stitch next to this initial chain 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and yarn over 3 times, and I insert in that same stitch where I started my round. I bring the yarn through. I have 5 loops on my hook, and I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Then I will chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now I will still attach this with a slip stitch in the same stitch where I made this second double treble crochet for this last petal and where I started my first petal. So between those two, between this last double treble crochet and that initial chain 4, I will slip stitch this chain 4 right there. And pull it tight. Make sure that all those stitches fit in there. There we go. And that concludes the flower part of the granny square. And now, before we can start working on the square around this, we are going to need something behind these petals to work our next round into. And for that purpose, we are going to be creating chain stitches behind each one of our petals. And we will be chaining 2 stitches behind each one of our 12 petals. So we are going to start this round right here, right where I closed that round with a slip stitch. And here you might need to pull these petals apart a little bit so that you get right in between these 2 petals. And I will start by chaining 2. 1 and 2. And now I will secure this behind my first petal. So basically this chain of 2 stitches goes over my first petal on the back side, and I will secure it right here between these 2 petals. So if you have made 3D granny squares with me in the past, you know that I always like to pick up 2 loops for these to secure these loops behind the petals. So I picked up 1 loop from this petal and then another loop from that petal. So the 2 loops that are the closest to each other from each petal. I picked both of those and I just pull my yarn through both of those and I pull it through the loop on my hook. And that is my first chain of two right there. I'll make another one. Chain 2, 1 and 2. And I will secure this. This goes now over the second petal, and I secure it right here between these two petals. Again, I pick up one loop from each side, grab the yarn and pull it through those loops and pull it through the loop on my hook. There's my second chain of 2. I chain 2 again. And again, this one goes over the third petal, and I secure it here between these two petals. Again, picking up 2 loops, one from each side. Just pull the yarn through and pull it through the loop on my hook. So that is how I work that chain of 2 behind each one of my petals. So I will have 12 loops in total once I'm done. So feel free to go ahead and work all of those loops behind the petals. If you need to see how we made them and where we secured them, feel free to rewind, go back and see how we made these previous ones and make the rest of them exactly the same way. All right, I have made my 12 loops behind the petals, so 12 loops in total. And I'm ready to secure this last one. With this last one, I'll just go to the start of my first loop here. And I slip stitch there to secure this last one. So, right in the beginning of that first loop, then I chain 1 and I can fasten off this color. Here we go. All right, and we are ready to bring in our background color. And now with this next round, we will turn this currently more like a circle into a square. So let me see if I can show you on this side. So basically we will be working one cluster of stitches in each one of those loops that we created in our previous round. And the clusters are going to be either 3 treble crochet stitches for a corner cluster. So these 2 here form a corner. 3 treble crochets. I have a chain 2 between, and then 3 treble crochets in the next chain here that I have. And then for the sides, I will just create 1 cluster of double crochets. So in this round, we'll be creating 1 cluster, either a corner cluster or a side double crochet cluster in each one of those loops we created in our previous round. And I will start by attaching my yarn with the slip knot again. And I will attach it into one of these loops that I made in my previous round. Doesn't really matter which one. I'm attaching it here because I'm still using my weaving as you go method. So right where I have my previous yarn end. And I will attach my yarn right in the beginning of this loop here. So insert my hook in the space, bring the yarn through and pull it through the loop on my hook. And then pull that tight so it doesn't escape anywhere. And I will start here by making my first corner. And I'll start by chaining 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this chain 4 counts as my first treble crochet. I work 2 more treble crochets in the same chain. So yarn over twice, insert in the space, bring the yarn through. I have 4 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. I'll make another treble crochet in the same space. Yarn over twice, insert in the space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. By the way, don't be scared of pulling these petals down and making sure that you have room here to work. Because at least I find that if I don't have enough room, these stitches turn out way too loose for me, which then impacts the size of my square. So don't be afraid of pulling the petals down so that you have room to work here and not end up with stitches that are super loose here. All right, so that's my first corner cluster. I will chain 2 for my corner. And then I will work the second half of the corner in the next chain space here. So yarn over twice, and I insert in the next space. Bring the yarn through, 4 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over twice, insert in the same space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. One more treble crochet, yarn over twice, insert in the space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now this here is my first corner. Now in the next space, I will work a cluster of double crochets for the side. So I'll just go yarn over once, insert in the next space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So 3 double crochet stitches into the space. There we go. That's my first side. Next, I will work my next corner. So I'll move on to the next chain space, and I'll create 3 treble crochet stitches into the next space. So 3 treble crochets. There's 1. Need 2 more. And 1 more. All right, there's the first half of my corner. I chain 2 for my corner. And then I'll make 3 more treble crochets in the next chain space. So yarn over twice and just move on straight into the next chain space. And make 3 treble crochets there. Again, pulling these petals down so that I have room to work here. And 1 more treble crochet. Here we go. Now that's my second corner. And this is how I work all around the flower. So making 1 cluster of stitches into each one of those chain spaces. So next here, I would be making what am I talking about? A cluster of 3 double crochet stitches in that next space for the side, and then I would start my next corner here. So feel free to go ahead and work all around your granny square. If you need to see again how we made the side, feel free to rewind and go back here See how we made this side and make the 3 remaining sides exactly the same way. And the 2 remaining corners are going to be exactly the same as this corner right here. So work all around. When you're ready to close your round, meet me back here. All right, I have worked all around. So now I have the square around my bitterroot, and I'm ready to close this round. So the last thing I've done here is to create that cluster of 3 double crochets for the side. And now I will just go ahead and close this round. And here I go into that 4th chain stitch that we made at the start. And I slip stitch there. There we go. And then I like to start my rounds in the corner whenever possible. So I will just go into the next stitch here under both of those loops and slip stitch there. And I go into the next one under both loops and slip stitch there. And then finally slip stitch into this corner space here. And from here I will chain 3 stitches. And now the last 2 rounds of the granny square are very easy if you have made granny squares in the past. So for the last 2 rounds we are creating just clusters of 3 double crochet into each one of these spaces between the previous round's clusters. And in the corners, in that chain 2 space, we make 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets in the same space. And that is how we work the last 2 rounds. I will show you here a couple to get started. So I chained 3 stitches there. That's going to count as my first double crochet. I make 2 more double crochets into the same corner space. And that's my first cluster. I chain 2 for the corner. And then 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. Here we go. That's my first corner. Then I move on to the side. I find this first gap here between this corner cluster and this side cluster, and I'll just make 3 double crochets right there between those clusters of the previous round. Here is my first side cluster, and I'll make another one into the next gap between the previous round's clusters. Here we go. So this is how I work all around my granny square. So now next here I would go into this corner space, make 3 double crochets, chain 2 for the corner, and 3 double crochets in the same corner space. And then in the sides, just 3 double crochets into these gaps between the previous round's clusters. So feel free to go ahead, work all around your square, and when you're ready to join the round, meet me back here. All right, I have worked all around and I'm ready to close this round. And here I just go into that 3rd chain stitch that we made in the beginning. So we chained 1, 2, and 3. I go into that 3rd one. And I slip stitch right here to close the round. And then, just like with my previous round, I work my way to the next corner space. And that's where I start my last round for this square. So I'm in the corner, and now this last round is going to be exactly the same as the previous one, with the only difference that since our square keeps growing, we will have one more cluster here on the side of the square. So I start here by chaining 3, which counts as my first double crochet. I work 2 more double crochets. Then I will chain 2 for the corner, and I work 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. And I'm actually running out of yarn here, so I will switch here. So I'm going to show you here how I switch my yarn if I run out in the middle. So I start my next double crochet like I usually would. I go yarn over, pull through 2, and I stop here. I leave a good few inches here. I bring in my new yarn, and I pull the new yarn through the last 2 loops on my hook. And I turn my work around, and I make a double knot here. To tie these 2 yarn ends together, make it tight. There we go. And then I just keep going. This makes a really nice seamless joint there. Then I'll just have to weave in these 2 ends, and I do like to weave them in at least in the 3 different directions when they are like that in the middle of the work. All right, so then I just keep going with this new yarn, 3 double crochets right here. There we go. So this is how I work all around my square again. So just making 3 double crochets into each one of those gaps between the previous round's clusters, and in the corners I do 3 double crochet, chain 2 for the corner, and 3 double crochet. So go ahead, work all around, and then meet me back here when you're ready to close the round. All right, I have worked all around, and now I'm ready to close this final round. And I go here into that 3rd chain stitch, and I just slip stitch right there. Then I chain 1, and I can fasten off. Here we go. And now with these petals, you can arrange them whichever way you like. I kind of like pulling them so that this right side of the petal is always sort of on top of the previous petal. So just pull them like that. That's what I've done here as well. Here we go. So here is my Bitterroot granny square for Montana. The only things that I have left here is, first of all, weaving in the rest of these ends. Most of them I took care of as I went, but I do still have especially the initial end and the last end, and then this where I ran out of yarn. to weave in, and then blocking the square. But other than that, I'm all done. This square, by the way, has also not been blocked yet. As you can see, it looks pretty good, but I do find that blocking just gives the square a nice finalized look. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I really hope you like this. If you are posting pictures of your Bitterroot on Instagram, please make sure to tag my account. It's Wildflower and Stitch. Thanks again for watching. If you like this, please subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment, like this video, and share this with a crochet friend. All of those things do help me a lot. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.